you meet Matt?
Yeah. So I, Prism, I started doing the work that leads to Prism in 2016. Prism begins in 2018. At this period where I'm kind of dating people, but because I have more clarity about the path I'm on, it's a lot easier to realize that those relationships weren't ones that were uh, synced with the kind of path that I was on. And so in like 20, I think 18, I'm online one day and hanging out with a friend, drinking some wine, and I see this picture on Facebook or Instagram. I really can't remember. And it's like a suggested friends type thing. And so I click it, and it's of this like really like handsome, like kind of hippie dreamboat creature. And I just see a couple maybe posts. I think it was Facebook, and I see just a couple of his posts and the kind of things that he seems interested in. And between his looks and what his spirit seemed to be from those little glimpses online, I was like, oh my God, what a dream. Like this is my dream man right here. And so I call my friend Brittany over, and I'm like, Brittany, you have to see this. And I show her a picture. And the truth is, I didn't think anything about like us ever meeting or anything like that. It just seemed way too out there probability wise. And he lived in Birmingham, so didn't live in Mobile or anything.
At this point, it's just a little fantasy.
Yeah, it's just a fantasy, but I think I like him, or I follow him, and we follow each other on Instagram and Facebook. And truthfully, I do no research really into him other than I just see like pictures and I see like things that he posts sometimes and just tuck it away. You fast forward like to, I think it was 2018 I saw that. In 2019, I'm talking to Kirsten, who is my Prism preteens program director at Prism. And I'm saying, Kirsten, what do you think we could do to improve our training for our facilitators? And she said, if we could get SEL training at Prism, I think that would be so valuable, and it's really effective in other places. And so I say, okay, so I start looking for SEL training or organizations that'll train nonprofits. And I find an organization on the West Coast and realize they want us to pay like $14,000 to do it. And I'm like, that's like half of our operating budget right now. So that's not going to happen. And I keep looking around, and she's like, it doesn't probably exist in Alabama. And when I'm about to abandon trying to find it, I think, I haven't really researched what's like available in Alabama. So I do some researching and find ACE, which is the Alabama collaborative of educators. For some reason right now it's leaving me, but I'm a big AlaQuest collaborative of educators, and their mission is to bring SEL training to educators in Alabama. And so I go to look up like who I should reach out to, and lo and behold, Matthew Smith is the executive director of this organization. And I was like, what are the odds of this?
Right?
And I had no clue. I had not seen it when I'd followed him on Facebook or Instagram or anything. And so
now your probability is looking way better.
Well, and still I was like, this seems so bizarre, and this human being lives in Birmingham, And so I reach out, we schedule a meeting. First one is me, Kirsten, and Matt. And my heart is like pounding out of my chest in this like business meeting, and it goes really well. And I'm telling myself things like, you know what, people can seem a certain way online, but then you meet them in person and they're completely different. And like, he's probably like all these things, right? He's going to be like a social butterfly, and you're just going to be awkward as hell when you're around him. And but the meeting goes really well.
Life as he was in your little fantasy world.
What's that? Say that again.
Is he just as dreamy in real life as he was?
Oh my God. Oh my God. The first meeting, that first meeting, it just like sealed the deal. I was like, I am doomed if I'm going to deal with this person. And you could just tell immediately when he spoke that he spoke with so much just wisdom and just emotional mastery. Just a very aware human being, and just like a Cliff Notes version of his backstory. He had lost his younger brother tragically to gun violence, and that's why he created ACE in the first place. Was he and his mom were trying to answer the question: how do you reduce violence? How do you make a society that is less likely where people will grow up to do violent things? And the conclusion they came to was we got to bring social emotional learning to educators. So anyway, that informed
he was on the similar path to you, because all of this is really a gift of struggle, because he turned something so horrible into something positive that he could improve other people's experiences in life, right?
He took his own harm and he said, I don't want this to be experienced by other people. And so he set out to change it.
Yeah. So you're kind of on parallel paths at this point.
Yeah, a lot of similarity. He started this nonprofit with his mom. Mm-hmm. And so he was also the founder of a nonprofit. Still didn't think anything of it. So months pass after this, and I'm planning on going to Birmingham to visit my friends, Justin and Craig. Justin, who helped me create Prism. And at this time, he had moved on and moved to Birmingham. And so I shoot Matt an email and I say, Matt, I'm coming into town. I would love to chat business with you if you're free at this time. And he like immediately responds and says, yes, I'd love to meet. And later I found out that he told his roommate on the way out to meet me, I'm leaving for a business meeting that I'm pretty sure is going to turn into a date. And so he was already on that same page and kind of picking up on what was going on.
Oh, you were dreamy too.
This whole time he had been scoping me out. Yeah. And so I meet him in Birmingham. I wait for him at a coffee shop called Filter Coffee. And I remember feeling like this electricity in my body. Like before I even met him, like everything felt like it was vibrating. And when he walked up, it was just almost so uncontainable that I felt like my whole body was actually vibrating and kind of loopy. I was like, what is going on? And then he gave me this hug that lasted forever. I think he just already knew. He knew. He was like, I found my person. And we sat down there for 3 hours and just swapped stories. One of my favorite books is a Shel Silverstein book called The Missing Piece Meets the Big O. And it's a book I found after the grief of my long relationship in that closet. And it's all about really falling in love with your own journey and realizing that you are your own missing piece. And so we were sitting there talking, and at some point we're bringing up spirituality and we're bringing up relationships, and it's that like seamless, just getting each other. And I say, there's this book about relationships that's a children's book, and it's one of my favorite books by Shel Silverstein. And he goes, yeah, the missing piece meets the big O. Like, doesn't even ask the question, he just answers it. And that's what it felt like the whole time. We just kind of stare. We would have these moments where we would just sit back and just stare at each other. And it was this recognition of we have stepped into a current that has always been reaching out to us. And that's just what that whole relationship felt like,
So did you always live in separate cities?
We did. And he was very... previous relationships, I think a marker of our growth as people was I would have been so ready pre that 6 months in the closet to just upend my life to go be with somebody. And I told him from the beginning, I said, I'm doing my dream and I'm committed to this dream. And even when we realized we were just in love and wanted to be walking together, I told him that this is a non-negotiable for me. That for me, it was about Prism needs to get to a place where it's sustainable. And when it's sustainable in a way that I haven't seen queer nonprofits get in Mobile, when it reaches that sustainability that I can truly step away, then I'm going to come be with you. And so we just committed to making trips to see each other. That, mind you, this is all kind of like earlier, like it's 2021, so it's not in the heart of the pandemic anymore, but there's still, like, most things are still shut down. And so there's a lot more spaciousness in our lives. Most of Prism's programming was virtual. So there was this kind of special period of time where I could go see him and he could come see me. And so we just, I'll tell you what, we made every moment of that relationship count. And so I would see him, like the first time I went to his house, we like ate on his rooftop that like looked over the Birmingham cityscape, and he would come down here and we'd end up on a pier with the, under the moon and the stars. And there was just this almost cinematic nature to all of this. And what was the most beautiful thing about it is I think we both found each other at a moment where we had both kind of evolved to that point where we were saying, we recognize that this journey is about taking care of ourselves and committing to our own journey. And that is why we know how to love each other. And so when I am insecure, I don't let my ego make it about blaming other people or looking for someone else to make me whole. When I'm feeling insecure or struggling with something, I recognize it as my work, and then I'm with a partner who can affirm me and reassure me, but still also recognizes that he has his own work too. And yeah, it was a healing relationship. It was a transformative relationship, really through the entirety of it.
So what do you think your biggest lessons? I mean, you touched on them just now with Matt, but I think the being whole is certainly huge, and you're not willing to sacrifice your wholeness to run up. And you had mentioned the word clingy earlier in the relationship. You had really evolved to that point where you were not insecure enough to need that.
Yeah.
But what would you say some of the biggest life lessons you learned with that were?
With Matt, we processed the whole, because he lost his brother, we talked a lot about death, and we talked a lot about letting go. And we recognized that a journey that we both had committed to together was a journey of learning how to grow more and more into people who just hold on to life less tightly and embrace that life is largely about being as present as you can be, and learning how to let go. And I think that there were a lot of different ways that I experienced that with Matt while he was here. And so that was maybe the biggest lesson. And then there were other things. I'm an introvert at heart, and Matt was just this gregarious spirit who, when he walked into a room, everybody just fell in love with him. And I felt emboldened by the way that Matt loved himself, and by how that equipped him to love people in a way that made them feel so seen and so liberated. And so I would say that I was a much more shy person, that there was a lot more, even as a person who had grown a lot more insecurity for me when it came to being around like social spaces. And I really learned how to just play and enjoy my own company even more in his company.
So how long were you together, and what were your plans that you had been making together?
Yeah, so we were together for 9 months. I met him in early March of 2021, and he died on December 13th of 2021. And up until his death, I think we had figured out, I had set a date, and it was about 2 years, and that was going to be my goal of getting to Prism to a place that it was more sustainable. Now, we both understood that date could move depending on where we were. But I was going to give it about 2 more years, and then I was going to relocate to where he was, and we were going to do life together. There was also some projects in Birmingham, like Magic City Acceptance Center, that did similar things to Prism. And so I felt that I could move from Prism into work that was still similar to Prism. Yeah.
Had you talked beyond that? Did you talk marriage? Did you talk family? I'm sure,
Yeah,
you talk
we
all
did.
of those things. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, we talked about we were both thoroughly queer people, and what I mean is we had a lot of non-traditional ways that we saw the world and non-traditional values. Um, and so, for instance, there was someone in Central Alabama named Lindsay who was one of his closest friends, and who he was on a journey to co-parent with. They were trying to have a baby together. And so, he talked to me about that, and I was just ready to fall into that world and to be on that journey with them in whatever way that materialized. I knew that when I wasn't working for a youth program, I've always wanted to be a dad, or at least for a very long time. I felt like that's a part of at least a desire that I have, and um, so there was just no doubt in my mind that we would probably raise a kid or two together. But I will say that we called it play dreaming, and we tried not to get too attached to any idea of the future and related to that whole understanding that things change in a blink of an eye. And so, yeah, that's why that kind of play dreaming language felt better than like planning language. And so they were always just play dreams.
Yeah. So in December, you find out that he's been in an accident, right?
Yeah, so he had it was really, there were so many things that led up to it. Matt became really fixated on the feeling that someone was about to die in the last months leading up to his death. And he was afraid it was me or his mom. And so he would call me at strange hours to check that I was okay. And I chalked it up to his trauma of losing his brother tragically,
Shockingly, unexpectedly.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And so that this was some kind of trauma response.
Mm-hmm.
And so on December 12th, he calls me. He's been working at like this property that he had that he inherited from his dad. And he was fixing it up because a Christmas thing was coming up. He had celebrated Thanksgiving with me and my family and loved it, and just was ready for me to get to experience like holiday time with his family. And so his plan was to stay up there, work on this property, and then I was going to come up the next weekend. And then he called me and he said, "Hey, I really need to see you. I just feel like I need to see you." And that wasn't super characteristic of Matt. Like he hadn't had quite that kind of experience with me before. So I was like, of course. And so he quit everything he was doing that day and just drove down on the 12th, totally unplanned. And he came in, and I will say that it was one of the most like calm. Like there was something about his demeanor that was just different that night. And I remember even laying in bed that night with him. Like he came in, I cooked for him. We did some yoga together. We climbed up in bed and we were cuddling. And I remember he was curled up into me, and I was looking at the ceiling and just thinking, like, I feel like the luckiest human on this earth. And he and I were just a constant like deluge of thank yous. We loved saying thank you to each other, to whatever it was that made it possible for us to be together. Gratitude was just a big part of our life practice. And I remember that night just thank you, thank you, thank you, just to this. And so he woke up the next day, and I kissed him goodbye, and then he got in his vehicle, and I chased him out. And then I kissed him goodbye again at the door. There's like a video of me on the ring just running out there. And then I get in my car, and there's a plan for me to have a meeting with Sarah Fisher and someone who was helping us plan some social media type things for Prism. And so I leave shortly after him, and I text him like in the middle of the day to check in with him. or maybe like around noon or something, and I don't hear from him. And then I text him again a little bit later, don't hear from him. Don't really think anything of it. I just figure he's in his world. He'll get back with me. But then I texted him one more time at like 5 or 6. And then I get a text from Andrea Miller, one of his coworkers, saying, hey, have you heard from Matt? He was supposed to, he's missed 3 meetings today. And that I knew was really unusual. And so, I guess at some point I talked to Mike, my roommate, and I go, I think we need to start looking for him. And so we start calling hospitals, and we start from Birmingham, and we kind of call down. And it occurs to me after doing this for about 30 or 40 minutes that when I look back on my texts, it was like an early text that he didn't respond to. So I thought, is it possible that he could be somewhere down here? And so we call a hospital in Mobile, and the doctor says to Mike that, yeah, he's here, but they don't tell us anything else. And they said that somebody would call us shortly. And so I throw my shoes on, and I'm elevated at this point because I'm thinking, oh my God. They said that they moved him out of surgery. That's all they told us. And so on one hand, I was like, maybe it's not like critical or serious if they've moved him out of surgery, but also if he was in surgery, like what happened? I was thinking maybe he was going to have some broken bones. And then we get out to the carport, and Mike gets the phone call, and I can see it on his face while he's talking to them. Something's not okay. And then he hangs up the phone, and he tells me that he didn't make it. And the next few minutes, I don't even really remember. I was just out of it. And then it occurs to me that I have to call Linda and tell her that she's lost her only other son. And those were back to back the 2 worst experiences of my life.
I mean, how do you even get through that? You did, though.
Yeah.
You told her?
Yeah, I did. At first, I was just not coherent. And so I almost asked Mike to, and he would have been willing to. And then something in me was like, Corey, you have to tell her. And she's going to want to talk.
At this point, had you been around her much?
A little bit, just a couple times we had hung out. And I love Linda. I love her so much. And I knew that if somebody else was trying to tell her this, that she was going to need to hear me. Like that was what was most important. So I called her and told her. And then it felt like a rallying in the middle of something that was impossible. And so as soon as that was over, my family came, my friends came, and they were just with me for the next couple hours. Yeah, the whole thing just didn't feel real. I like for the next month, my throat hurt from that night because I was just hollering most of the night. That was definitely, yeah,
unimaginable. Were you able to get to the hospital?
He was already in a place where we couldn't see him. And so what happened next was in a matter of a couple days, we were like, he had already expressed that he didn't want to receive the chemicals, that people take in their bodies to keep their bodies from decomposing. It was important to him for it to be as natural as possible. So I ended up, my parents took me halfway to Birmingham. Some people up there picked me up. And I met with Lindsay and the group up there, and we did a lot of grieving. I will say I was blessed in that Matthew attracted a lot of just playful, emotionally powerful spirits. And so they knew how to grieve. They knew how to hold space for me and for each other. And so there was this like combination of incredible grieving, but also we would sing together and we would play together, and then we would be grieving again. And leading up to the funeral, my friend Lindsay, who was Matt's other partner who he was having that baby with, she sorry, this is a little bit dissociative for me, but she was looking at the program. We asked to see the program that was going to be written for Matt's funeral service, and we're both theology nerds, of course. And she got her MDiv too, so it's something that we really shared a passion for. And we looked at it and we were like, "There's no way that Matt would be okay with the traditional funeral service." And so we asked the pastor if we could take it over. And so me and Lindsay both kind of wrote the funeral. And I got to write the eulogy, and she wrote a lot of the liturgy. And one of the things that came from it was this liturgy with the refrain, "There is no remedy for love except to love more." And so we would say things, and then the reader would say, "There is no remedy for love," and then everyone would say, "Except to love more." And getting to be in the process of remembering him was a really important part of that really early shock and trauma of losing him. And Lindsay, I call her Lindsay Love. That line has been something that's just been an anchor for me when I've felt the grief really intensely.
Yeah, I imagine. I mean, it's a great refrain for life, isn't it?
Yeah.
In most every circumstance. So tell me about the grieving process. I mean, you get through all of the things you have to do logistically for a funeral and all of those things. You come home and then what? I mean, how do you wrap your mind around all that? Because I think one of the common things that I've heard in the last couple of weeks with my friends is it doesn't feel real. It doesn't feel real. I can't believe you can't wrap your brain around it. So how do you get through all of that?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. The first, I think, 3 to 4 months, I barely remember what happened. I will say that I was drinking a lot. Sometimes I was more extroverted than I usually would be, and I'd want to be around people. Other times I wanted to be very by myself. There were unexpected things in my life that came to me in that time. I will say one thing that I would say it wasn't a strategy. It wasn't something I learned. It's just something that happened. And I'm grateful that it happened, is I treated it like it was about surviving, which means that I let go of the need to get back to normal. I let go of the need to try to understand what happiness and joy would feel like again. In that time, it felt like it would be impossible to ever feel joy again.
Did you believe that you would have happiness and joy?
I just abandoned that belief.
Right.
And I needed to, is the truth. That's the thing, is I think it would have hurt more to try to believe that those things were possible. And so I think I just embraced this attitude that right now is not about understanding the future. Right now is not about doing life well. Life is going to suck, and we're going to let it suck. And the other thing is we're going to take what we need. And so when I needed to be around people, I was so indulgent and was around people. When I needed people in particular, I would call them and say, "I need you." A big thing was I got a lot of messages in that time, and I never responded to them. And I think for any other circumstances, I would have felt bad about that. But I realized that even responding and acknowledging some of the message, responding to or acknowledging, would have been too much energy for me. I didn't have the energy for it. Yeah. And so I really just leaned into this feeling of right now is about surviving, and I don't owe anything to anyone, and I'm going to take what I need. And it was, I think, the right instinct. It's what I needed for myself at that time.
Well, and do you feel like all of the work that you have been doing, the 6 months in the closet, which, by the way, I think should be a title of a memoir, 6 months in the closet.
Yeah.
Do you think all of the work that you had done leading up to all of this had allowed you to be able to say, this is what I need and take it?
Yeah, I will say that the gift, there are so many gifts that Matt gave me and that I gave myself before even meeting Matt. And there's a way that him dying felt like the the pinnacle of like what can you let go, like can you accept, like part of letting go for me is about just deep acceptance about the lack of predictability of life, and can I accept this? And I will say this, I think because we loved each other in that way, and we talked about that, we processed that, we saw each other, we saw each other as kind of walking that journey together. What it meant was I didn't come out of this with like bitterness because I thought that I found something that I could hold on to, And I'm not saying that there wasn't bitterness in the months after he died. There was all the things, and then sometimes there was just no feeling. A lot of times there was no feeling. But what felt true for me was I was looking at this and saying, we were on this path together, and I'm still on this path, and his love is still with me, and I still trust myself. It came all the way back to that. I still trust myself, and he would want for me to trust myself, and that this journey was never about finding a soulmate who completed me. It was about finding someone who could walk with me as someone else who felt that he was all that he needed, and
Whole people.
yeah,
It's complementary instead of completion, right?
yeah, yeah. And that said, all that to say, I think that put me in a place where the suffering may have been intense, but instead of being resentful that I lost him, what I have felt mostly is just gratitude that I had him, and that I know that journey doesn't end, right? Like the fact that we were on a path that was about loving and trusting ourselves. He informed and strengthened that path, and me being on that path is a way to keep loving him in the path that we were walking together.
And you're continuing the work that was important to both of you.
Yeah.
While it may have manifested itself differently for the things that you chose to do, it's still the same work, right?
Yeah.
It's trying to take something out of life and make it better.
Yeah.
The tools and the knowledge and experience that you have. So it's honoring to him, I would imagine. You could feel that to keep going on with the work is still fulfilling part of his dream, right?
Yeah. Yeah. That's a really lovely way to think of it. And I know that he would be proud of the work that I'm doing. His nonprofit is a couple years older than Prism, maybe more than a couple years. And so I would come to him and sometimes be like, I don't know what I'm doing, baby. Like, I'm trying my best. I feel like I'm constantly learning. It also always just feels like too much. And I feel like I'm spread thin all the time. Like, God, people who start nonprofits, y'all got to take care of them people, because I can attest that, you have those seasons where it's just you're working 60-hour weeks, and it's a series of them, and it's just to build it, and you see what you need to do to build it, and you don't it's not always clear what the path is when you're trying to start something from scratch. And the way that he knew how to affirm, you're on the right track, just keep going, people are going to take care of you, people see you, The workload's going to get better. You're going to get paid someday. All of these things that panned out, right? I have every victory that I've had since he's died feels like a victory for both of us. And it feels like him almost saying, I told you, you just keep going.
So tell me a little bit about the relationship that you have with Linda.
Yeah. So Linda and I, when he died, the first feeling that I had was this feeling that he would say, baby, you've got to take care of my mama. And so we've, out of his death, had this really special relationship where we go on walks together. I've helped her move. She's come down here to a Prism families gathering before. We just intend to be in each other's lives for the rest of our lives, And we've processed a lot about grief together. She is such an incredibly wise human being because of all the grief that she's endured in her life already. And so she's really helped me on my grief journey. I will say that something that's been, that I had some insecurity about in the beginning is that Matt was a very extroverted spirit. He really had this vibrant, huge community of people that somehow he had the capacity to create so much space for, and in ways that were deeply personal. And that's what I didn't get. Like, as an introvert, I've always thought, well, extroverts, they connect with a lot of people, but not deeply. And that wasn't Matt. Like, he connected with a lot of people and he connected with them deeply. And his mom was just no exception. And when they lost Joshua, his brother, it drew them even closer, and they talked like every day. And a fear that I had going into it was there's no way that I could ever be enough to be a presence in a way, A, that Matt was, and B, like, I think that even for me, I was thinking I have, between the nonprofit, my own family, living in Mobile, how can I love you in the way that you deserve to be loved and need to be loved? And I think certainly that distance has been hard at times, but she has been so understanding and just loves me for who I am. She's perfect. I love her.
So what has this journey of grief, this specific one, what has it given you?
Yeah. I've lost my grandparents, so I knew that kind of loss before. I've never experienced anything this kind of tragic loss before. And so I think one thing that it's given me is awareness about what people are going through when they lose someone tragically. And so when I hear about those kind of things, my heart opens in a different kind of way than I think it probably did before losing Matt. And so I hope that it's given me a way to hold space for people that I didn't know how to hold space before. The other thing, though, Elizabeth, is that I feel like as I get older, there's this invitation or this question about life. And the question is, are you going to harden more to protect yourself from life? Are you going to soften more because you know that you experience life when you soften, right? Life is more sensational. And I feel like I probably because of the way that we loved each other and what we believed, I think I just softened even more. And so there's a kind of tenderness that came after the most terrible part of losing Matt and that shock, that like 3 to 4 month season of shock. There came a moment where I felt really close to my life. And what I mean is things that maybe lost their sensation and regained them. And, since losing Matt, I've seen like synchronized fireflies and teared up and walking through a field of them. And I see like kids in playgrounds and I tear up because I feel so happy when I experience and witness their happiness. And the truth is that I just feel really grateful to be alive. And I feel really grateful that I get to experience really magical things like falling in love with somebody like Matthew Smith. I don't know if that's really a lesson so much as just a way that this grief has changed me.
Well, and that was 2 years ago, right?
Yeah.
So where are you now?
I have a fox. I have a little toy fox that I carry with me everywhere, and it's what it used to be Matt's, and he got it. He got a fox as a my brain right now is so scrambly. A baby shower gift for a friend, and the thing is that his favorite animal was a crow, and mine is a fox, and so he came to like let a fox represent me. And so when he got this fox for them, he got attached to it because it made him think about me. And so we would take pictures of him with the fox in a lot of places. And then he decided he wouldn't give them the fox as the baby shower gift. So he had to buy another one to give to them. And so Mr. Fox belongs to me now. And I take him with me a lot of places. If I go camping, if I like travel, sometimes at Prism events, I have Mr. Fox with me. And I would say that almost 2 years out from his death, I feel my playfulness returning to me. I feel more, I feel like the things that are really important in life feel clearer to me. Like I feel less caught up in ego stuff. I miss him so much. And there are things about the way he made me feel alive that were just unique to him, And so I have moments where I'm not expecting it, where that grief will come, and I'll have these vivid memories of things that we did together. And it's so hard. But I feel a lot of mostly gratitude right now for my life. I'm really quite in love with my path. So that's where I'm at right now.
Corey, I can't thank you enough. I think it's a hard thing to do, to go through all those things and relive, but I think it's so valuable, and I think it honors what you had, and it honors Matt, and hopefully brought you back to some really good memories. And I think that it'll help other people find that hope, find that will to survive, and maybe allow themselves to take what they need during those times. Because I think that's one thing we all tend to want to perform the way other people expect us to, or get back to normal when there's no normal, really, right? So I think there's a huge lesson in that, in being whole enough to say, I'm going to take what I need, and I'm going to not even look to the future. I'm just going to survive every day, every minute, every second. So I think there's so many lessons for other people who are going through grief. And it seems like right now, I was talking to somebody the other day. I said, I feel like the world just hasn't gotten back to normal since COVID, and so much loss and death. And he said, yeah, it just feels out of sync. So yeah. I think conversations like this can sort of help us get through the not feeling in sync with our life or our path or the way things are supposed to be. So thank you so much for that.
Yeah. Thank you for making the time for me, Elizabeth. And I haven't really talked for just a chunk of time to people about this in a long time. So I hope that if anyone's listening and this resonates with them, just know that you can reach out to me, listeners of the gift of the struggle. And I really do hope that you'll take that permission to just survive if you're in that grief season. Like it's, you don't owe anybody anything. Just take care of yourself.
Perfect. Thank you, Corey.